Hundreds gathered in public and private gatherings in Pennsylvania to commemorate the life of Corey Comperatore, the fatal victim of Saturday's shooting at a Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Thursday morning, friends and family of the former fire chief gathered in private at Lowby Hall in Freeport, Pennsylvania. The gathering was the second memorial after Wednesday's vigil for Corey Comperatore, who was shot dead at Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Comperatore was an Army reservist and volunteer firefighter chief. He died shielding his family from incoming gunfire. Attendees and family members stressed a message of unity during the memorial services. The House and Senate will conduct separate investigations into the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
House Republicans have already announced two separate investigations, and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is forming a bipartisan task force to look into former President Donald Trump's attempted assassination.
The House is conducting an immediate and thorough investigation of these tragic events, and that work has already begun. The American people deserve to know the truth.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee James Comer subpoenaed U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle to testify on a hearing to be held on Monday, July 22nd. And Chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee Mark Green invited DHS Secretary, FBI Director, and Director Cheadle to testify, but also invited officials from Pennsylvania State and Butler County Police. Some Republicans think this is not enough.
But I think that this does warrant a J13 type commission where we can actually look at it and say, let's investigate and find out why this happened so it doesn't happen to anyone.
During this week's Republican National Convention, U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle was confronted by Republican senators who demanded accountability for the alleged security failures.
This is exactly what you were doing today on the call.
This was an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers.
Others, like Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, focused on gun control and mental health awareness as a strategy to prevent future attempts.
I don't think giving a military-style weapon to a child to solve a psychological problem makes much sense.
Eyewitnesses at last week's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, expressed concern for alleged lack of security and coordination.
I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn.
And according to some Republican lawmakers, Department of Homeland Security and local police have deflected accountability.
There was a grandstand, a very large area, a lot of people there when this all unfolded.
And that's what I was trying to stress, was that we just divided up areas of responsibility, and they provided support to those areas of responsibility.
The Senate's Homeland Security Committee has also requested a private briefing and hearing with U.S. Secret Service officials before August 1st. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
American strength was on display at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee on Wednesday. How can the U.S. use its strength to counter China and to bring American hostages home from Gaza? Joining me now is former U.S. Congressman and retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Colonel Allen West, thank you so much for joining us. And China and Russia have reportedly carried out live fire naval exercises in the South China Sea this week. Is this saber-rattling?
Well, one of the things we have to be concerned about is what will happen in the next 5 to 6 months. We have seen Russian naval vessels, to include nuclear submarines, make ports of call in Cuba. We know that China now has a listening station right there in Cuba, which is just 90 miles from the United States coast of southeastern Florida. So yes, I think it's a little bit of flexing their muscle and trying to show that they are, in a position to take some type of action. We know that Iran is supporting Russia and Ukraine. We know that Iran is shipping its oil to China, and as well as Russia is shipping oil to China. So we have to be concerned about this new axis of evil that is forming.
Colonel, last night we also heard from the family of one of the Americans held hostage in the Gaza Strip, Omer Nutra. He's calling for his release during the Republican National Convention. What can be done to bring the hostages home?
I think the most important thing is that we have to put the pressure on Iran. As I stated earlier, Iran was virtually bankrupt by the Trump administration. Therefore, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, none of these organizations had the resources to do what they were doing. But when you all of a sudden undermine our own domestic oil and gas industry, when you take the pedal off with the sanctions that we had imposed on Iran, now their coffers have been enriched by tens of billions of dollars because of the Biden administration, as well as trying to go back into the nuclear agreement. And so they feel very free to go back and do what they once did, and that was to support state-sponsored terrorism. They're the number one country doing that. So I think we have to get back to putting those economic sanctions, restore our oil and natural gas, and we got to rebuild our military capability and capacity.
And we'll hear publicly from former President Trump for the first time since his assassination attempt last Saturday. He said he threw away his first speech, and this speech will be a wholly different one, and that he'll use it as the chance to bring the whole country, even the whole world, together. How has his near-death experience changed him?
Well, I haven't been in combat. I can tell you that being shot at or being shot is a life-changing experience. And I think we all saw that Monday evening when he came into the RNC Convention Hall. So I think that that's where he wants to talk to people, someone that has, come within millimeters of losing his life, and what his reflections back on life and what his reflections of leadership here in the United States of America means. And I think it's very important that to the international stage, he shows, again, that courage, that strength, that resolve, that resiliency that defines America. And I think that the point was made. This is his Teddy Roosevelt moment.
Colonel Allen West, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.